3-134. To the Arabs who would fight for 40 years on the slight provocation that a camel belonging to the guest of one tribe had strayed into the grazing land belonging to another, and both sides had fought till they lost 70,000 lives in all, threatening the extinction of both tribes. To such furious Arabs, the Prophet of Islam taught self-control and discipline to the extent of praying even on the battlefield. War was fought for self-defense. When after repeated efforts at reconciliation had utterly failed, circumstances arose that dragged him into the battlefield purely in self-defense, the Prophet of Islam changed the whole strategy of the battlefield. The total number of casualties in all the wars that took place during his lifetime, when the whole Arabian Peninsula came under his banner, does not exceed a few hundreds in all. He taught the Arab barbarians to pray not individually, but in congregation to God Almighty, even amidst the dust and storm of warfare. Whenever the time for prayer came, and it comes 5 times a day, every day, the congregational prayer had not to be abandoned or even postponed. A party had to be engaged in bowing their heads before God, while another was engaged with the enemy. After finishing the prayers, the two parties had to exchange their positions. In an age of barbarism, the battlefield itself was humanized, and strict instructions were issued not to embezzle, not to cheat, not to break trust, not to mutilate, not to kill a minor child or a woman or an old man, not to heave down date palm nor burn it, not to cut down a fruit tree, not to molest monks and persons engaged in worship. His own treatment of his own bitterest enemies was the noblest example for his followers. At the conquest of Makkah, he stood at the zenith of his power. The city which had tortured him and his followers, which had driven him and his followers in exile, and which had unrelentingly persecuted and boycotted him, even when he had taken refuge in a place more than 200 miles away, the city now lay at his feet. By the laws of war, he could have justly avenged all the cruelties inflicted on him and his people. But what treatment did he mete out to them? Muhammad's heart overflowed with the milk of love and kindness, as he declared, and I quote, "This day there is no reproof against you, and you are all free," unquote. This was one of the chief objects why he permitted war in self-defense, to unite human beings. And when this object was achieved, even his worst enemies were pardoned, even those who had killed his beloved uncle Hamza, mutilated his dead body, had ripped it open and chewed a piece of his liver. The principle of universal brotherhood and the doctrine of the equality of mankind, which he proclaimed, represent very great contribution of Muhammad to the social uplift of humanity. All great religions have also preached the same doctrine, but the Prophet of Islam had put this theory into actual practice, and its value will be fully recognized perhaps sometimes hence, when international consciousness being awakened, racial prejudices would disappear and a stronger concept of the brotherhood of humanity comes into existence. Sarojini Naidu, speaking about this aspect of Islam, says, and I quote, "It was the first religion that preached and practiced democracy. For in the mosque, when the azan is sounded and the worshippers are gathered together, the democracy of Islam is embodied 5 times a day when the peasant and king kneel side by side and proclaim, 'God alone is great.'" The great poetess of India continues, and I quote, "I have been struck over again by this indivisible unity of Islam that makes a man instinctively a brother. When you meet an Egyptian, an Algerian, an Indian, and a Turk in London, what matters is that Egypt is the motherland of one and India is the motherland of another." Unquote. Ideals of Islam, Madras, 1918. Islam civilized Spain and is answer to today's social dilemma. Mahatma Gandhi, in his inimitable style, says, and I quote, "Someone has said that Europeans in South Africa dread the advent of Islam. Islam that civilized Spain, Islam that took the torch of light to Morocco and preached to the world the gospel of brotherhood. The Europeans of South Africa dread the advent of Islam as they claim equality with the white races. They may well dread it. If brotherhood is a sin, if it is equality of the colored races that they dread, then their dread is well founded." Unquote. One of the most distinguished intellectuals of modern history speaks, Sir George Bernard Shaw, in The Genuine Islam, volume number 1, number 8, 1936. And I quote, "I have always held the religion of Muhammad in high estimation because of its wonderful vitality. It is the only religion which appears to me to possess that assimilating capacity to the changing phase of existence which can make itself appeal to every age. I have studied him, the wonderful man, and in my opinion, far from being an antichrist, he must be called the savior of humanity. I believe that if a man like him were to assume the dictatorship of the modern world, he would succeed in solving its problems in a way that would bring it the much needed peace and happiness. I prophesied about the faith of Muhammad that it would be acceptable to the Europe tomorrow as it is beginning to be acceptable to the Europe of today. Unquote. Pilgrimage, Hajj, a living testimony. Every year during the pilgrimage season, the world witnesses the wonderful spectacle of this international exhibition of Islam in leveling all distinctions of race, color and rank. Not only the Europeans, the Africans, the Persians, the Indians, the Chinese all meet together in Makkah as members of one divine family, but they are all clad in one dress, every person in two simple pieces of white seamless cloth, one